Okay, let's dive into this. As a manager, your first instinct is to help, right? To solve problems, to offer up your brilliant solutions. But what if I told you that that very impulse, that need to help, is actually holding your team back? We're about to explore a kind of counterintuitive idea that sometimes the best way you can possibly lead is to just stop helping. Just let that sink in for a second. Your helpful suggestions might be making things worse. It feels totally wrong, doesn't it? But you know what? This one idea is absolutely crucial if you want to grow your people, not just manage a bunch of tasks. We're going to unpack exactly why your natural tendency to be the fixer is creating a team that depends on you, not a team that's capable on its own. So, here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at how help can actually hurt. Then, we'll dive straight into the power of asking questions. We'll start with the common traps we all fall into, and then build out a brand new toolkit of questions that really do unlock thinking. We're even going to touch on how to handle real emotions when they pop up, before we land on a super simple new mantra that I promise will change how you lead. Okay, so if you're not supposed to be the fixer, what's the alternative? Well, it's all about shifting from being a fixer to being a coach. And listen, this isn't about setting up formal hour-long coaching sessions. No way. We're talking about coaching in the moment, a really simple mental shift that can turn everyday little interactions into these powerful growth opportunities for your team. This right here is the heart of the matter. Your job isn't to have all the answers. It's to help your team find their own. You've got to stop being the hero who swoops in with a solution and instead become the guide who has the map, helping them figure out their own thought process and navigate their own way forward. I mean, this visual pretty much says it all, doesn't it? When you tell someone what to do, sure, you get compliance. They'll execute your instructions, but you're not building their confidence. Asking, on the other hand, well, that forces them to actually think, to engage, and to develop their own problem-solving muscles. One path creates dependency, the other path creates real, lasting development. So if asking is the secret sauce, then we've got to be asking the right kind of questions. It sounds easy, but honestly, there's a huge difference between a question that sparks real reflection and one that just falls flat. Let's start by looking at some of the most common traps we all fall into. First up, the closed question. Did the meeting go well? It seems harmless enough, but what do it invite? A one-word answer. Yes. No. And that's it. Conversation over. It basically signals you're just checking a box. Now compare that to an open question like, so, what happened in the meeting? That simple little change completely unlocks the conversation and shows you actually want to understand. Ah, the disguised suggestion. Oh man, this is probably the most common trap for managers. You ask something like, have you considered speaking to finance? But it's not a real question, is it? It's an instruction with a question mark at the end, and now the other person is totally stuck. They either have to agree with your idea or they have to push back against their boss. Neither of those options leads to them doing any genuine thinking for themselves. Next, we have the stacked question. This usually happens when you're kind of thinking out loud. You just fire off this whole series of questions all at once, and it just creates total confusion. Your team member has no idea which one to answer first. And you know what? Often none of them get answered properly. The key is simple, one question at a time. And finally, you have to be really careful with why. A question like, why did you do it that way, can immediately sound like an accusation, and it just puts people on the defensive. It also makes them analyze the past problem instead of moving toward a future solution. A much more productive phrase is something like, hey, take me through your thinking on that. See? It feels collaborative, not confrontational. All right, enough about what not to do. Let's pivot and talk about what actually works. It's time to build your new toolkit. These are questions that are specifically designed to open up thinking and create brand new possibilities. And you know what? It all comes down to 3 really simple rules. First, keep your questions brief. Short questions force clarity. Second, and this one is a total game changer, start your questions with the word what. This just opens up thinking. And third, use how when you're ready to shift from thinking about something to actually doing it. Let's really look at the power of what. An ineffective question might be, have you thought about how to fix this? That's just another closed question, right? But if you rephrase it to, what options are you considering? Well, that's completely different. It's open, it invites genuine exploration, and, this is crucial, it keeps the ownership of the problem with them, not you. And just look at the sheer power in this one simple question. What matters most here? It cuts straight through all the noise, all the chaos. It forces prioritization. It gets right to the heart of any issue. Honestly, this might be the single most valuable tool any leader can have. So once they've used what questions to figure out a path forward, that's when you pivot to how. How questions are all about planning and implementation. How will you approach that? Helps them think through the steps. How will you carve out the time? Makes them think about logistics. These kinds of questions turn good ideas into actual, actionable plans. Now, there is one more piece to this whole puzzle that can be a little tricky. When you start asking these really powerful questions, you sometimes tap into real emotions. Frustration, disappointment, maybe even some tears. And your first instinct might be to back away, but you really can't. Just remember that emotion is a fundamental part of how we all process things. If a team member gets upset or frustrated during one of these conversations, your instinct might be to quickly move on or offer some hollow reassurance like, oh, don't worry about it. But doing that just dismisses their entire experience. The best approach is actually super simple. First, just sit with it for a moment. Just acknowledge the feeling without trying to immediately fix it. Then ask a supportive question. Something as simple as, how are you feeling about this? Or what support would help you right now? It shows you're taking the whole person seriously, not just the task at hand. So, we've covered the traps to avoid, the tools to use, and even that crucial human element. Now let's distill all of this down into one simple mantra that you can start using literally today. This is it. This is your new mantra. Ask more, tell less. That's all you have to remember. Try to make this your default setting. Before you jump in to offer a solution, just pause. Ask a question instead. That single change, that tiny little habit, is where real growth for your team begins. So, I'll leave you with a challenge. Think about your week ahead. Can you find just one conversation, one moment, where you can consciously choose to ask instead of tell? Just one. Give it a try and see what you unlock.